Yeah, absolutely, man. No, I'm stoked to be on here. It's gonna be wicked.
And we are live now. Oh, this is good. All right, guys. So welcome to another episode of Drinks and Dogs. I got two guys I greatly respect in the decoy world. Andy Krueger, French Ring, Super Select. I don't know all the stuff that you guys do. Shaun, I have to ask you, how the fuck do you pronounce your last name?
Okay, it's actually pretty easy. It's pronounced exactly like how you look at it. It's just Shaun Thankachen.
Okay, cool. I was like, that's one thing that I was worried about. I was like, I'm gonna butcher this man's last name like I butcher everyone's name. Man. Even now, like when we just got off the screen with Ramen, I was like, his name's not Ramen, like top ramen. It's like Ramen. I'm like, good. Like I butchered that. But we got Shaun Thankachen. I believe that you're probably one of the first PSA decoys I've ever even like heard of and saw of, and like that. I was like, that's a cool thing. So both. I would, in my consideration, I would say like national world level decoys, and, just great human beings in general. So, that's why we're doing this today. So today, the whole purpose of Drinks and Dogs in general, actually, let me cheers you guys real quick. Cheers guys.
Cheers.
Sounds like protein shake.
I got a rule, no drinking for the weeks. I'm pretty regimented that way.
Shit, that's how it has to be sometimes. Dude,
yeah.
So the whole purpose of like Drinks and Dogs essentially is to kind of bring like the dog community in and share different perspectives, different views, and different qualities. Like, as you guys know, like in the sport world, when it comes to like even decoy work in sport, like the sport work or just personal protection, law enforcement, there's a lot of different views in what is good and what is, what people want out of it. And it's perfect the fact that like you guys are involved in this, and like when we're talking, because it's very much like a diverse, different thing. Like I know, like Andy, like you're primarily French Ring, right?
Right.
So give me the rundown on the French Ring titles and all the stuff that you're doing now and all that. Just your background, essentially your introduction.
All right. Well, shoot, man. I got started going in about 2008, 2009, doing like police stuff. And then I worked my way into PSA, where I was a PSA decoy for quite some time, maybe 4 or so years. I was decoying PSA, and then I kind of stumbled into French Ring, which just for me personally was like left behind. Like, okay, this is it for me. So I certified as a decoy in French Ring in 2013, and pretty much ever since then, in French Ring, there's levels to being a decoy, just like the dog. So you're a level 1 decoy, level 2 decoy, level 3 decoy. Obviously, level 3 best. Obviously, that's the place that I want to be. So I got my level 1 in 2013, and got my level 2 in 2015, and then I got my level 3 in 2016. So that was kind of like time, and that's kind of the journey for me. And then let's see, my dog, I'm in French Ring also. So my dog Jasper is gonna be 5 next month. So pretty much got him 5 years ago, and about a year, maybe 2, I don't even know, a couple years ago we got our Ring 3. So that was a good accomplishment for us. So it's been nice to be able to see those support from both sides, a competitive decoy, and then of course I a trainer as well. So that's been a little bit of the journey for me.
Awesome. And I didn't even know that you're a PSA decoy. And then Shaun, you do both too, right? You do French Ring and you do PSA, right?
Yeah, so I'm still really, really new to French Ring. I've only been training French Ring for the last kind of year and a half. We got a pretty cool setup out at our facility. So basically the field is split on 2 sides. One side is a full size set up for French ring. That's where they host their trials and stuff. It's a separate club. And then we have our PSA club on the other side of the field, and then the facility right in the middle of it. So it's it's still really, really new to me. I wouldn't call myself a French ring decoy. I haven't done the selection yet. Definitely super interesting sport. I see a ton of value in it, and tons of things cross over into PSA, which is where my heart's kind of been for the last about a decade now. I've only been certified. This will be my 4th trial season this year that we're going on. It's kind of been cut a little bit short, I think, just with kind of the Corona stuff. I was going to have a late start. I was lucky to squeeze in a trial in January out in Tampa. As far as decoying goes, I kind of got into it because my family owned a company called Ultimate Canine Bodyguards up here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And for the longest time, he was just kind of like the personal protection, civil trainer. And then he wanted to kind of look into sports. And I think it was a pretty easy transition, or smoother transition, let's say, to look at something like PSA back then, kind of circa 2012-ish, 2011-ish. And we kind of made the shift with a couple Cane Corsos he had. And it's all history from there. I mean, I was lucky to grow up around a dog training facility. My dad had suits. I probably took my first bite around 10 to 12. And then, at that point I was just kind of forced into it though, you know what I mean? So I maybe didn't like it like I do nowadays, but kind of once I got a little bit older through kind of high school and stuff, I really started to take appreciation for it. And then similar story to Andy, once I got my own dog, it kind of changed my world and my perspective on sport and how competitive I was, especially with kind of my fight career kind of coming to a little bit of a halt after I finished university. And I kind of was looking for something to be super competitive in. And then not only could I do it with my dog, but I could do it on a decoy level and on my own personal level. And it's kind of been history since then, just kind of going at it as much as I can. Now, I got a question for Andy real quick before we hop on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Do you ever get the opportunity in ring to both trial and decoy underneath the same trial at all? Have you ever, I don't know if they allow that or not.
You can, but not same level. Like I'm competing.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
For days 1s and 2s.
Right.
But I couldn't decoy my dogs in.
Right. Yeah. Do you like to decoy and trial at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. It's always different with decoy to decoy. So I just wanted to kind of ask that.
I liked it when my dog was going through the lower levels, like Brevet, ring 1, ring 2, like I could trial, I could decoy the ring 3, which is like, if you know ring, like ring, like that's where it's a little different than PSA sense to where like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but like I feel like PSA, like you get to the level 3, like you hit it, and like usually the dog tires, or maybe they do 3 like another time or 2, but like in French ring, it's like
compete. Yeah.
3, okay, now we're actually ready to start the dog. We're ready to start competing. So that's what like decoying ring 3 like that. That's the part about decoying ring for sure. Ring 3. That's where you play with the big boy.
Yeah, 100%. What's your favorite exercise?
I like the downfield stuff, dude. I like the face attack.
Okay.
I like the
face attack.
Yeah, face attack, dude. A really, really good decoy would probably be like, oh, I like the basket.
The basket?
I want the downfield.
Yeah,
fun.
That's cool. Respect that.
That was actually like my first like approach to ring. Like it was years back. I think it was like almost like 8 years ago. First time I put on the suit, it's like, all right, it's a ring dog. It's like, just pivot, use the pivot, like we use like a little barrel, put it in front of it. Right. In front of me, he's like, all right, just learn how to scoop and move. He's like, you can find, you're good. Was not good my first fucking I got laid the fuck out. Like it was not like literally on my face. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, well, that wasn't not. I like it, but like,
yeah. Funny story
never...
actually. Oh,
yeah, that's
you guys.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, funny story. You know, coming from PSA and kind of dabbling and getting kind of serious into French ring has been a pretty tough one too, because similar boat, we're really only used to using one limb primarily. 85% of the time, it's a left bicep dog. And then trying to go to a sport where everything is taught pivots, and all the dogs in our French ring club are pretty solid in that area. So like, you just forget you have a right arm, and you forget you have, you know, a right leg. And you know, even when you think you move it all the way for like an esquive, you're like, oh, the dog will bite me in the chest too. So you know, it's just so different. But
yeah, that's what I think about ring, man. It's a little bit more like a good dog will bite you anywhere. They'll bite you here, they'll bite you here, they'll bite anywhere. When I was going from PSA over ring, like in PSA, it's always and like your stick is right here, and like I got really used to that, like muscle memory. But then in ring, you're
down big time
in the dog.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. I was doing both PSA and ring for maybe like a year, like when I was doing trialing, decoying for both sports. So it was like kind of weird having to like, but like I said, after a little while, you know, French ring was just kind of like, you're coming this way.
Yeah.
So went all in on it.
Yeah. That's the hard thing that I've seen, like in transition, because before, let's say like 15 years ago when I started doing helper work in Schutzen, I started there and then went into like suit work and like just transitioning through just different movements and understanding of like what the goals are in between each individual, you know, sports. Like that was like one of like the hardest things, like that, like just switching like behavioral patterns. Like I use the analogy, like when I was a boxer. You know, you use a wide stance, you know, your hands are out, like, you know, your feet are out, like your hands are up. Like I use a Philly shell. And then, you know, when I went to Muay Thai, my fucking leg got destroyed because the square like stance, like just like, I remember getting my ass whooped by this, and Gaston probably doesn't even remember this, but Gaston Bolanos, the Dream Killer. He's like, he's in Bellator, but I remember the first time I ended up sparring, like that's one of the first people I sparred with, but because I was a professional fighter, he was there too. And he just blew the fuck out of my goddamn leg. Like it was like, and like I'm using like, you know, professional level skills here. And like I think about it the same way when it comes to like decoying work. I'm like, you know, decoying work, I'm like, it's like the same thing. It's like, okay, cool. Like I know how to catch the dog here, I know how to move here. I know how to move here and move here, but like, you know, switching through the different variations, there is a vast, you know, difference. And, you know,
big time.
You know, but that's how you make a good decoy. I mean, I think like a good decoy is someone who can decoy all things.
I get the question all the time too, like, you know, switching, because I actually enjoy training both. And, you know, I don't know if I'll ever make it to kind of the trial level or kind of selection for French ring. My head French ring decoy is trying to kind of force me to that corner, but you know, people ask me all the time in PSA, because, you know, the one most important thing when you get into PSA is not leaving your line, and you cannot come off your straight line, right? You're supposed to go straight at the dog rather than just come off the line, as in ring. So yeah, tons of people are always asking the question, you know, like training both, how do you prepare yourself and kind of look at it from that perspective? And I do it just like I do in dog training, man. I cue myself, you know, like when I'm about to do a courage test in a PSA scenario or PSA practice or trial, I go down to like my knees, a certain position. I take a few, you know, specific amount of breaths. I get ready and legitimately cue myself as if you're going to do, you know, a broad jump or, you know, a palisade or something like that. Yeah. And then ring, completely different. I have to cue myself. Otherwise I end up like what Andy said, with my stick up in the air. And I have to force myself with my stick out front the whole time. Otherwise it's coming right back up here.
What ring club do you train with?
It's called Krueger Canine North. I think you've actually caught a few of our club dogs from Lori,
Yeah,
Mojito, and Chaos.
yeah,
Yeah.
Lori. Good dogs too.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So we actually we're lucky. We got to sneak a French ring trial in because we brought out our Canadian judge, Ryan Venables, last week. One of the clubs brought him out for a trial. So we actually got to have a trial. But on the PSA side, we haven't been so lucky just because there's no Canadian judges quite yet. So we got to wait till the border opens up.
I hear you. You're in Canada.
Yeah, on the west side. So in Calgary, Alberta.
Okay, nice.
And obviously Cincinnati, so I'm sure you're well aware of all the guys down in Ohio for PSA, Joe Parks.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Parks has a heart of gold. That guy is awesome.
Absolutely.
He's a good guy.
Totally. And all of his club members, Kyle, Kelsey, Murphy, all of them, they're all like, top stuff.
Yeah.
Dude, Kyle's the dancing decoy, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Dude, I've
legitimately
never met these
some of the
fucking guys.
nicest people I've ever met.
I've never met them ever. I've just seen them online, and like just the shit that they post, like just by them in general. I'm like, it's like you guys are fucking funny as fuck. Like, I
totally.
Need to hang out and like actually have a drink with you guys because like you guys are work your dogs just because like you guys just look funny as shit. Like that's just fucking cool.
Absolutely. I think they're trying to become like TikTok famous too. Actually, Andy, I checked out your page and I think you're like pretty much TikTok famous too, right?
I don't know, maybe. What does that mean?
What did you so our producer for the documentary that we have, he's TikTok famous, quote unquote. But did you know that you can actually monetize that shit? Like you can actually get like if you go on TikTok and if you have like I think like over 100K followers, like people can pay you to be live.
No way.
I'm sure. I know I don't use TikTok like you're supposed to use it at all. I pretty much just like grab songs out of there and like put them my bite words. But like it's still fun. I know I'm not using it right, but I like the way I use it.
I'm like I don't use it at all. I just use it to creep other people's videos. I'm one of those people, but no, it's I mean if you're going with it, you might as well go all the way in, right?
Right? I mean shit. I mean that's what we do with the dog training stuff, so
that's right.
100%.
So obviously like we know like the sports that you guys are all training in and like and going into the stuff you do. Do you guys ever feel like there's a difference between training like the sport work that you guys do versus like training like when it comes to like law enforcement or working with like quote unquote real dogs, all of those other things? Like do you feel there's a difference between the decoying?
Yeah, I mean if first for me, like for French ring, like a police dog is very basic. I mean that in like a condescending way. Police dogs extremely basic. Like they need to shit out of you. Hard bite, everything else that goes into it, but it's gonna be a treat. French ring, you train your dog, but now your dog has to be a guy that knows how to unravel the training. The decoy is going to analyze your dog and then attempt to pick him apart and not allow him to get bit. Whereas the guy on the street, he's never been bitten by a dog. He doesn't expect he's going to be bitten by a dog. He's trained to combat a dog. So luckily, a police dog, they're going to be a lot more successful with minimal training because, their adversary doesn't have the level that they do. Ring dog, the decoy is going to be is very experienced, and whether you're a big, fat, strong, hard biter, he's going to know how to take you apart and to take minimal damage, if any at all. So like, I totally don't mean that in like a condescending way, but like for French ring, at least, the biting behaviors and they're so complicated. It takes so much training. Just a totally different game. I mean, and you can't compare them. I mean, I love both. You know, I love a good police dog. I like working with them sometimes, but for me, that's the difference. A sport dog, specifically, the decoy is going to have as much training as the dog, if not more.
Yep.
Yeah, and see in PSA, there's a ton of of teams that are in service right now that are still super successful because of the actual sport itself and the actual mechanics they're looking for, where a lot of police dog training kind of boils right back to, right? I mean, even going right down to Jerry and all of his foundation, where it comes from too, and where it's kind of directed to. But yeah, there's definitely a ton of dogs out there actively competing that are service dogs. Now, where it gets a little bit contradicting in sport work, specifically in PSA, is let's say in the upper levels. So let's say I got a buddy of mine down in Utah, Robert Barlow, and he's got some really nice dogs. And one of them, actually a Malinois named Judge, absolute crazy dog, comes down the field, feels like 100 miles an hour and doesn't slow down one little bit. He's had tons of live bites. But he's now in the ones, and there's gunfire in the obedience. So to me, this type of stuff is now a little bit contradicting to what he's supposed to do at work, and it gets a little bit difficult up there. But it's not to say that people can't be successful with it, and the training isn't too far off. It's just one step farther with some of the environmentals and the level of obedience when it comes to having a suited decoy out there on the field. But the actual mechanics and what you're looking for in the bite is pretty similar.
And that's I think that's why it's important that law enforcement agents, other agencies, the alphabet boys and everything like that. I think it's really important that they do acquire decoys like yourselves, people out there who are going to, you're going to be, when you're tactically in the aspect of knowing how to fight the dog, and the dog knows how to fight you. You know when to reward, you know when not to reward, you know what to build on there. Because a lot of times, especially over here, since with all this other stuff, budgets are cut, and a lot of guys don't want to. A lot of guys are just hopping in the suit and just getting bulldozed by dogs, and they're not teaching anything. Similar to what Yanni was saying, but if you have decoys who are very good and talented, like yourselves, they know the dog starts to equip better. So it's it's like training different training partners. The better the dog is equipped, the better the dog understands. That's why where our style and decoying, what we've done or what I've done over here, is that it's about adapting them to any and all circumstances. I use my dog Cerberus as an example. It's for him, it really doesn't matter what you're doing, what you're doing, how you're doing it. If you're trying to move out, he's coming dead center every single time, and that's just what's gonna be for him. Or our dog Ozzy, if you put something in front of your body, then you expose the leg, he's gonna destroy your leg, and if you keep your arm up, he's gonna hit your arm. But just showing them the pictures and having educated people like your guys themselves to teach police canines that way. So there's, I think the training itself can be elevated. It's just a lot of utilization of you guys. People who are big names, and who know what they're doing and are physically fit and ready to do those things and are skilled professions. If I was gonna fight somebody tomorrow, or in a week from now, I'd bring in sparring partners that are based on the people that we're gonna fight, even more so. Same thing with fighting, Shaun. When you bring in, you have to be able to mimic your opponent and bring in skilled opponents to do that. So that's the same thing I feel like a lot of agencies and people are missing out on, is that you have to bring in skilled opponents for your dog.
Yeah, my local department here in my city is one firsthand that they're still very IPO situated as far as their canines go. And, you go and watch one of their trials or the competitions that they host, and it's, I don't want to be condescending, but it's not really the caliber where it could be when you look down south and you see all these other departments, diversifying and looking for other trainers that are, heavily involved in, some of these sports, specifically like PSA, let's say, and it can only better the dog. Everyone, I think, can pretty much teach a dog how to bite. It's just being able to shape those behaviors under different environmentals, which is going to change the ball game from scenario to scenario, and then of course making sure the dog can out. I think that's kind of, a routine thing with police. So yeah.
Man, you know what the tricky thing is for cops and different agents, like they're first, like their job is to be a cop, but then they all have to be a dog trainer or like a handler. So like they can't, like me, I can pick up and all day, every day, do dogs, do train, fully immersed. But a police department, they have limited time, limited resources. They got, their dog bite, their dog go. They're like, does it? They're not dog trainers. They have families. They have a stressful job. They're like, dude, what do I care about your? Oh, he's biting this arm. He's biting this arm.
Yeah.
Let's just get the job done. And like the biggest difference between a police dog and a sport dog is for points. A sport dog is to via points. So like if a police dog gets off by the guy that he's trying to fight and the guy grabs something and he holds the dog off for, I don't know, like 30 seconds, a good bit of time, and then the dog eventually bites him, holds him down, cops come get him. That dog gets a party. They're like, hell yeah, dog. He fought through all that. He finally got the guy. Like, hell yeah, like what a good dog. And or if my dog gets held off for several seconds, rude. I'm like, dude, you suck. Like you're not eating. It's a huge fail for the dog. Where it's like a police dog, it doesn't matter. What does it matter if a police dog takes 10 seconds to ultimately bite or subdue someone? It doesn't matter. He did his job. It's a good job. A ring dog, you fail. For sale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We even teach like a lot of we even teach like a lot of like the like even now, like I mean like the stuff that we worked with some of like the agencies like a few years back, we use a lot of breaker bar stuff when it comes to like outing. Like it's just literally just popped out, like we do it that way. We don't even like out. It's just literally just breaker bar.
Right? I feel like for police dog, like that's kind of the move. It's like
yes, the norm.
Well, like what do you? If you're a cop with a dog, he bites you, you get him off. Like, why do you have to reinvent everything that you do to like get this out? Maybe not even that into it in the first place. Like just bar out, get him off. What are you talking about? What are you talking about going to a seminar in France?
Yeah. Dude, that's that's why I think. Are you guys familiar with high risk deployment HRD, the HRD guys?
I've seen some of the stuff. I'm not. I'm super familiar.
So it's Ted Summers, who's also a PSA decoy. Alicia Ray. I've never met him. Eric Stambro, Shaun Thankachen, and like Falco decoy. Like there's like a laundry list of like high qualified decoys. But the cool thing that I really like that, and like this is where I really like what they're doing, is that they're bringing in these very high. Jason Davis is a Frenchman decoy. They're bringing in like a lot of pretty high level decoys, and they're bringing them into like police departments, and they're having them work these teaching like police departments how to decoy and do these things to create a better system. And I think like that's pretty awesome. I like that. I was like, if I weren't so busy over here, I already bugged Ted and Eric enough and be like, hey, just like I bugged everyone else. I was like, hey, I need to get the fuck out there and start working some dogs, and just go out there, because I just like that idea of opposing, like that's the same thing like we do here with, like the techniques that we use in our bite work is, creating these dogs to be better. I mean, they're obviously great genetically, it's fine, but you can make them better by, proper decoy work and exposing them to pressure incrementally and letting them win. And, even like the groundwork stuff that we do, like, it's just, it's a lot of stuff that helps build dogs, even better. So I think that's one of like the cool parts, like that thing, like they do, like, obviously like what you guys do, it's, it just gets even better. All right, you guys ready for some questions? Yeah.
Let's do it.
Uh-oh. I think I lost your mic.
I'm still here. If you guys can see me.
Oh, can you see him?
Yeah, I got him still.
Oh.
I got all you guys. I just got Andy, who's a little robotic.
Yeah, maybe a little connection problem.
Our internet's just been horrible these last few days. All right.
Man, it can't be any worse than it is up here in Canada. It's horrible. Like anywhere you go.
I believe it, man. Especially with everyone fucking on here, man.
Oh, for sure.
All right. Lease. You guys can choose. Actually, let's go here. Let's go to Andy first.
I think. Can you see him anymore? I think he left.
Has he gone? They might have locked him off. Shaun, so you're going first on this one. Least favorite spot to take a bite.
Well, I mean, I don't think it gets any worse than right in the cup. Actually, Lee was actually at one of the trials in Utah last year, and we had one of the dogs come. It was a ex kind of French ring dog that did a foundation in French ring and then switched over to PSA. And he was doing the ones, and the cans curtain pressure kind of kept him going straight line. And he actually ended up coming straight up the middle and hit me right in the cup. And it took like 5 minutes for them to out the dog. We couldn't get the dog
you told
out.
Me about that.
Yeah, so I had to lay on the ground. So I'd have to say that's the absolute worst. But besides that, I would say either like the very end of the limb. So either the wrist or the ankle. There's just no meat there to kind of protect it. And when the dog's coming fast and hits you, you're usually going down.
Yeah, it's the wrist or the ankle. That one's for me, it's always, because I always square up on it. It's always either like above my left knee and in the inner thigh, because I wear semi-comp like stuff, or like I would even say even like the back of the knee. Like I'll take pretty much like any other bite, but like the back, like the back of the knee or like the inside of like the thigh, like that sensitive part.
Yeah.
Like that's the part I'm just like, motherfucker. That's part of the reason why we fucking built the Ray Allen Primal Canine gauntlets, is because of that stuff. What I do is like, I got to fucking be able to work like dogs this way, but
man,
give them false rewards.
See, I wasn't gifted with good genetics when it comes to legs. I have like this tiniest like toothpicks. I mean, they're good for kicking, don't get me wrong, but when it comes to decoying, especially when we're doing like repeated stuff like on the, like let's say the bungee or stuff like that on the legs, I get butchered. So luckily with the new kind of Krueger Canine suits that we've been working on there, they are amazing, and where he puts the padding specifically for PSA bites, it's really good. Kind of tape it a bit down to the bottom. But yeah, man, if you get like a courage test and you have a dog coming in fast on either the wrist or the ankle, it's not fun.
Dude, Andy, so Andy's back in. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you got me?
We got you. So the question that we were talking about was least favorite spot to take a bite.
In the foot or the hand?
That's pretty much.
In the foot or the hand. I remember 2017 in Arizona, I was decoying the NARA championships, and Dave Kreuger's dog, I was doing the search and escort. He comes into the blind, barks at me. I escape. He bites me right in the foot, through the cleat. And you know, I was fine. I kept decoying, but then after, my entire foot blew up like a balloon. That was probably my least favorite bite. And then definitely the hand is never good or fun. But anywhere where there's suit, I'm fine.
Yeah, that's what I was telling Shaun. I was like, it's either inner thigh for me, like live bites or one thing like I could do like whatever, but like I was like inner thigh or inside or the back of the knee, especially like specifically like on my left side. I was like, those are the ones that just like I'm like, fuck my life.
Yeah, I guess if I had to pick one on the suit, I'd go kneecap. Right on the kneecap is never great.
This is called the internet juggle here, guys.
Hey, there he is. Uh-oh.
We're in 3 different states, or now Shaun's in a different country, so running the gate, running the gauntlet here.
I didn't realize he was from Canada.
It's and the biting, especially becoming a decoy. We got you back.
Yeah, sorry, I missed the question. What was it?
So I was like, because Andy was talking about, you know, his bites. He's like the kneecap would be his worst one in the suit. That's why my left knee clicks all the time, because Ozzy decided he's gonna break it and caught me on a fend off, and he won. So
yeah. See, for the knees, I don't mind it too much. I tore a knee back when I was fighting, and so it was definitely gets sore and tender after. But on the bite, for some reason, I don't really ever. It doesn't affect me too much. It's just kind of later, like it just kind of swells up, and then that's when it gets sore. But like I said, my legs, my calves are pretty much non-existent, and my ankles are tiny. So if like you get a big hard biting dog like Ozzy, I'm gonna get destroyed on the ankle.
Yeah, he's a fucking asshole too. That fucking dog. He's gotten so much more powerful through shelter in place. It's been ridiculous. I'll show you guys later, but I had to get like a fucking red light therapy fucking light to like rehab like a lot of the shit, like all the muzzle tears and the shit that I have going on from him. Dude, it's unrealistic. But like that's why we started doing the Primal Canine gauntlets. Which brings me to my next question for you guys. And this isn't something that someone asked, but as far as protection equipment, when it comes to being a new decoy and a decoy in general, you know, a lot of times you get a lot of people where they say like, you know, don't wear gauntlets and all this other stuff. You know, you got to earn the thing, you know, blah, blah, blah. What is your opinion on like new decoys coming in, or actually what would be, or when new decoys coming in and the level of protection that they should understand to wear or just like be prepared themselves for?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first and then Eddie can go. Well, for me, like I think there's definitely a certain period that you want to take bites with, you know, as kind of minimal protection as far as like, let's say just a suit jacket goes without a gauntlet. And that's not to be a dick or anything, but it's to build up the actual scar tissue around the muscle so it actually hurts less. You know, maybe it's a bad thing in the end of the day, but I mean, 9 times out of 10, I'm never wearing anything underneath my suits. And most of my suits, I buy a selective suit and I just wear a gauntlet on it and I take all the abuse in there. But because of the scar tissue being built up, you just don't feel it anymore. You don't bruise anymore if you're consistently taking bites. But, you know, to each their own. Like if it's just a little bit too much, then absolutely, you know, there's tons of amazing gauntlets out there. One of my good friends, John Katz, he makes an amazing split one that fits in there. Your guys' looks amazing. You know, that little bit of extra protection, if it's going to help you not think about the actual pressure and you know, allow you to be able to work a bite for longer, then wear it. Because in the end of the day, you know, if it's affecting how you're working the dog, then it's not, you know, it's not beneficial at all for you to be wearing no protection. But again, like there's definitely something to be said about building up the actual strength to take a bite for that long, right?
Yeah, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it totally depends on the dog too. Like, look, if you're a new decoy, invest in a nice suit that's relatively new, you know, training weight, semi. If you want to throw a wrap on or a gauntlet, I mean, that's cool too. But it depends on the dog. Like a ring dog, you may do an object guard with them. You might do 10 or 15 passes, and they bite you in a different spot, 15 different passes. So they bite you on the wrist, they bite you on the ankle, they bite you in the back of the leg, they bite you right here, they bite you right here. So like for like a gauntlet for that kind of dog wouldn't be too effective, but like for PSA for sure, like if the dog's going here, like for sure wrap your arm up and like put a gauntlet on so you don't get completely destroyed. But you know, at the same time, like you do kind of want people to understand the pressure and like how a bite feels. I mean, it's a contact sport. Yep. So you're gonna get a little, like I just started training my little brother in a bite suit. He's been in a bite suit a handful of times. He's 22 years old. He's never done anything like this before. I mean, he gets banged up a little bit, but with the dogs he's working, with the suit he's working, he walks away with some pretty decent dings, but like nothing that I would consider like abuse. Like it's one thing to just send like a destroyer on a new kid and have him just like fillet his arm all day. And it's a
and that's a good point too.
Yeah.
With the PSA, you know, like every club that I've ever went to is primarily left bicep targeted. So, I mean, if you're working a dog like on a club day and, you know, you're working something specific and let's say you take, you know, 10 bites per dog and you got 10 dogs all on your left bicep and maybe the odd leg dog, absolutely, you're going to get torn up no matter what suit you're wearing. And what padding you're wearing, and that's where kind of a little bit of the tolerance gets built up. And maybe it's me just being a little bit not so much old school, but maybe just from like my fighting ways. You know, like we did the same thing with shins. Like I couldn't just go walk up to somebody and kick them in their forearms and expect me to be okay. I had to sit there day after day, banging on my shins, kicking bags, hitting them with a bamboo stick, rolling them up. In order to build up and kill some of the nerve endings. And I think there's definitely a benefit to that. But again, if you've done that and it's still too much, then dude, we're a gauntlet, because it's, again, you want to look for specific behaviors on a dog, or you're working with specific scenarios or anything. You don't want to have to cut it short because you're uncomfortable in the suit. And you know, that's kind of where I think it helps.
Hey, this is an important point too. Like when you're brand new, or even when you're, you know, a year or two in, you're gonna get banged up.
Totally.
You learn over time how to move in a suit, how to manipulate the dog's grip to where you're helping the dog, but he's not killing you. But like a new guy that just goes there and puts his arm out and gets banged by the dog, like it's, for me, like it's gonna take years to understand how to manipulate the dog's weight and their grip in a way where you're just not getting like absolutely teed off on, which is like a great way to put it. Like if you put a new guy in a suit, send the dog, and are just like, okay, work him. Like the dog's just gonna tee off on the guy. So like suits, gauntlets, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, for sure, protect yourself. But like, you just have to learn how to work with the dog and not get banged.
Big time. And I think the proper fitted suit, I mean, I know it's hard being a new decoy, and usually you're giving you're using a hand-me-down, or, you know, you find a cheap used suit and going from there. But, you know, as far as, let's say, upper body dogs go, it's not so much, you know, if you have a suit that's properly fitted to you, and, you know, it's not from a manufacturer that, you know, prefers to put slack in there, I know that's kind of a beneficial thing for French ring. But if, you know, like I like my suits fitted as tight to my arm as possible. And the reason being is it's not so much the full mouth bite that hurts. It's the last pinch, right? So I think there's definitely something to be said about having something that's properly fitted. And if you got to wear something under it to make it a little bit better fitting, then, you know, that's definitely what you got to do.
That's what.
Yeah, that's the difference. Oh, sorry, Mike. That's the difference between one of them, between ring and PSA, because most PSA dogs are going to bite a limb, like an arm or
Yeah.
a leg, where no matter what your suit's like, the dog can kind of get
Totally
their mouth
full
around
mouth.
it. But in ring, it's actually illegal to have a super fitted tight suit. There has to be a certain amount of bite depth, because if you have a skin tight suit on and the dog blasts you in the chest and they can't get a grip and they fall off, well, like, it's kind of cheating and it's kind of dangerous to the dog to not have a certain amount of bite surface. So I don't like a big baggy suit.
No.
But there definitely has to be a little bit of room in there if they grab you like in a weird spot.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
interesting. That's definitely like one of the, like, that's one of like the cooler parts I think like I've liked about ring is the fact it's that, but I didn't know like the whole like baggy suit thing.
Yeah.
Dude, a judge, when you walk onto the field to decoy, the judge is gonna check your baton to make sure it's legit, which I could explain the details of that. And he's gonna check your suit. The judge will literally pat you down. They'll check your knees. Like, you can't have on some like wonky knee brace with like metal and shit in it. Like, you'll break a dog's tooth. So he'll like pat you down and he'll check your suit. And I've even seen some judges be like, you can't wear that suit.
Oh shit.
So it like depends on.
It's a big thing.
You know,
That's
the
crazy.
local club trial, it might not be as big of a deal, but for a big trial, like you better come correct. Like, there's a whole list of rules for the decoy and just their suit and like their batons. Like,
they
come out with like a baton that's not split right or it's not sanded down. It can cut the dog's face. Like, you're out of here. You can't use that.
It's definitely one thing that I appreciate for ring. You know, there's a few small things that they really take and hold the decoys to a specific standard for, and one of them being the stick work. And you know, again, coming from, you know, a sport where we have the stick up and we don't really use it that much aside from our allotted, you know, 3 stick hits nowadays. It's kind of something that not so much gets overlooked, but people just don't pay as much attention to. And it wasn't until I started training French ring and saw how much work actually goes into, you know, making sure your sticks are not only appropriate for you, but also for the dogs that you're working. And that's not saying that not everybody does that in PSA, but there's definitely been a few trials that I've been to that I come and the thing is like a bat, right? And you know, it's I don't think that would pass in a French ring trial at all. That's for sure.
Yeah, dude, the baton is everything. Like, the stick work is everything. Like, I feel in PSA, like, it's almost secondary. Like, if a dog's afraid of a stick in PSA, you're like, okay, bye-bye, thank you for coming. Like, it's not even a thing. But like in ring, a really high-level decoy, the best dogs will fuck them up with the stick. Are we allowed to swear on here?
Yeah, we can swear. We can fuck shit.
Shit. A high-level decoy, say a dog has 0 stick issues. We'll just stick. They don't care. A high-level decoy will fuck them up with the stick.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the
big time.
The baton work is just never-ending.
Yeah, totally. Especially in like the return of a skeeve and like the barrage and, you know, all these type of exercises where you're really utilizing the stick. It's not just there. It's a full-on extension of your body, and it's a tool used to, you know, take meters on the dog. So I totally agree why it has to be held to a certain standard for that type of work.
So
I'll tell you what, that's
I literally train like my dogs to I like not even like talking together before, because I think this is the first time I've been like FaceTime Andy, like first time we talked on like with like Shaun like on the air. But like I literally train my dogs now, like every dog that it touched, especially when it comes to the stick or whip or baton, to like respond to pressure. So when someone hits them with a stick, they bite harder. And they I'm like, because I was like I told Lee before, like when we went into, or Lee and Matt, when we went into like, we're like, all right, cool, we're gonna go to sport. I was like, all right, my job is to make sure that any decoy that tries to run my dog with a stick or any form of environmental stuff, they're gonna make them pay. So like we literally the response to stick command means biting. It's like we use a simple marker system now, where it's like, okay, cool, like if you make a move even passively, they're gonna bite you, like, but they're gonna bite and dig harder and fight you harder. So like even now with like stick responses, as soon as like that stick comes down, whether it's here, whether it's under here, whether it's where it's in that part of the barrage of it, and any form of auditorial, because I know like in a ring, you know, you guys can't make noises when it comes to like yelling at the dog, or like even like in Mondio, and it's different within PSA because like, you know, you literally get hit and it's just rah, rah, rah. It's go. So we've literally been training for the last few years, just been like, all right, cool. Anytime any noise, any stick hit, any form of barrage in front of them, like I just want
you and you know there's a lot of people who are coming out and stuff and really teaching that, like, you know, a lot of pushing in with the stick hits, yelling too. I'm not like the loudest guy when it comes to yelling. I'm always like running out of breath. So, but you know, a big thing that, you know, in that sense is what gets a lot of dogs, I find, and it's not so much about being able to use the stick as much as you can use it in French ring, but just the presence of walking out. Like, let's say you have a handler attack scenario where you come out of a blind at the dog that's, you know, unaware that you're back there. But when you come out, you know, you'll get some guys who just come out and their stick's just down here, bright kind of thing, you know, hand down. But man, when you come out there like full on pressure, like arms up, you're staring down at the dog. You know, it's the presence that gets the dog, right? Yep. It's not necessarily the stick. And I think that's a big difference where, you know, again, in a sport where you're allowed to use a stick, but you have you're super limited in what you can do with the stick. And of course, again, the proper presentation still has to be there. So, yeah, definitely. It's super interesting.
And speaking on presence too, like I worked a dog just today, like literally before, well, I had one point before you guys, but worked a dog today who had worked differently. And I worked her, this a dogo, I worked her in prey. And then as soon as the presentation, like of just my presentation of just turning my shoulder, I turned my shoulder and like going down this way with was a whip too. I hit the floor, the dog immediately, boom, away. And it's just the presence that was presented, like just me being there. Yeah. The dog had worked beforehand, and I was 5 feet away from the dog, and the dog decided to go back. But the dog had worked beforehand with another company that was actually pretty deep. It's pretty good. And the dog was just like, the fuck? Like, who the fuck are you?
And you also get that too in PSA specifically with different speeds of decoys, because you know, this year they've now implemented a physical test and an ongoing thing that's, you know, could potentially become mandatory. They're testing the waters right now for it, and it's a certain physical standard they got to hold the decoys to. So I'm 100% behind it. But with that being said, for let's say the courage test specifically, where you have a certain distance you got to run at the dog, you know, you might have some decoy who's you know, quite a bit bigger than the other decoy. He's going to move a little bit slower. And then you have some guy who's like lightning fast, you know, and that's where I get tossed on the courage test a lot. And I see a lot of dogs, you know, great dogs, you know, miscalculate timing just because they're not used to the speed. And, you know, I'm not super fast, let's say, when I go off the line. But, you know, from playing football and Muay Thai and sprints, when I go on a straight line, I'm running at that dog full pressure as fast as I can. And, you know, I'm trying not to even stutter step at the end too, to slow it down. And that little difference in presence there changes a lot of variables when it comes to timing of opening your mouth, launch, where the dog's, you know, jumping from. And then, of course, you know, what the dog's going to do on the drive. It definitely affects it there. So, you know, when it comes to PSA specifically, not only do you want to get your dog on as many decoys as you can to see that difference in from decoy to decoy, but, you know, they've definitely got to be a certain level too where they can also bring the presence side of it. But yeah, great point.
But that's it. And one thing too, like Andy, like one of the first times I saw I think I like saw your page. I was watching you prepare for Super Select. I think it was the last one, and I watched like all like the hard work that like you put like you posted like videos of like you or like things stories too of like you in the gym just putting in the work and like working all those different movements. And like I was like I immediately was just like, okay, cool. We're good. All right, now I'm gonna put my fucking guys through this shit. I treated it like fucking it's like camp. I was like, okay, cool, like we're gonna fight, like that's how it's gonna go. But going into that, with the this stuff specifically when it comes to like, the work that you guys do. Another question is like, what are some of like what would be the biggest advice? And actually before we even get to that, and like what when you were preparing for Super Select, how vigorous was like your training schedule?
Horrible. It was horrible. I mean, it was mad cardio and just a shitload of work in the suit. Like, it's one thing to be in shape, and then it's another thing to be in decoy shape. With French ring and ring 3, the movements that you're doing and how you're exploding, it's almost impossible to replicate that in like a gym setting. So there's a physical. You can look up the decoy physical that has to happen, and you can see the tests. You have to do it in a certain amount of time, etc. So I'd run through the decoy physical a ton. I'd do a ton of cardio. I'd work a ton of dogs. It was crazy though. Like in PSA, it's good that they're putting in a physical test and making sure that the decoys, if it's a 30 dog trial, is the first dog really going to get the same work that the last dog does? 30 dogs in, or the decoy's going to be absolutely exhausted. He's going to be compromised. He's going to be banged up. He's going to be tired. He's going to want the trial to end after 20 some odd dogs. So you really have to be like more ready
up
here than physically. Like, the thing with PSA, PSA, they judge the grip, right? Like full grip is what they want. And that's also because, minus the fend off, like you're giving them the grip. I mean, you're basically just charging at them like this. You're giving them the grip. In French ring, in level 3, you're not getting a full grip on me. You know what I mean? You're not getting a full grip on me. Are you shitting me? I mean, that would be like getting caught with a flush punch to the face in a fight. Like, you're not going to tee off on me. So a dog grabs you right here like this. If it's a face attack, it's going to be 15 seconds of you hanging on like this. And when that horn sounds and the handler recalls you, you better pop off. Because then if you go, oh, finally, wham, and you drive in and regrip, now your points are destroyed. Now you're slowed out by tons. So, like the good decoys, dude, like a decoy like, Axel Valan, the best decoy in the world, bro, he's not getting banged up. He's not getting banged up in trials. Maybe here or there. He's not getting banged up, dude. He's working these dogs. Score, like, dude, I've seen some great decoys and they walk away from a trial like they just woke up, and I'm like dying. I'm like, I just look like I've been run through the absolute ringer. And it's just technique. Like, I've been in better shape than a lot of guys that I've decoyed with, and I've been more tired at the end than they were. It's just straight technique. It is that's why I fell in love with ring, because as a decoy you have the most influence of the outcome. You have the absolute most influence. You could have a dog in ring 3 that goes their whole career and drills guys on face attacks. Their whole career. You think this dog's a monster, he can't be stopped. And then he goes up against one of the best decoys and he gets dealt with on a face attack. And you're like, oh my God, like, I didn't know that was possible. You know, like that's what I like about the technique aspect, is that you could have the best dog in the world and he might get dealt with by the best decoy. He's not scared of a stick. He's not scared of pressure. He's not worried about anything the decoy is going to do, but you tank his points and you pick him apart. That's what I really, really love about ring.
I think like that's like one of like that's why I like the aspect of ring where it's a combative sport, but you know, obviously safely done. And you know, things like to where like you can teach dogs opposition, but they can actually learn, you know, to like come through. It's like, you know, when we like for me, like I haven't been a trial decoy for over fucking 16 years now. But I've been more training on the training side, but like for me, like when we're building these dogs and we're working these dogs, like essentially, like I don't know if you've seen like the work that we do, like a lot of the stuff. It's just like, you know, we're showing dogs these individual pictures, different things, showing how to combat stuff like that, to where initially when they come in, like, you know, we're building them up, like just like training them for a fight. You know, we're training them to be like the most, you know, opportunistic, most full grip, bring the most pain, bring the most pain compliance at all times, no matter if you're facing a PSA decoy, if you're Frenching or going against a ring decoy. Like it doesn't really matter to them. Like it's more like, oh hey, you're the guy I gotta bite. I'm gonna make this hurt really, really bad. really, really bad. You know, and that's essentially what we've been doing over the years. As far as like, you know, with Primal Canine, and that's like the fun part that I like when I bring in like, you know, new decoys, and like that's the big thing we've done over the years. And I hit you up earlier this year before COVID went to shit. Turned everything to shit. I was like, you know, I wanted to be like, okay, cool. Like we got to learn, you know, the other aspects of, you know, of decoying, or just like, you know, just different sports to prepare dogs better.
So important. It's so important. And it's like you discover almost like a whole new world. Like there's so many techniques and so many things that the decoy can do. There's so many ways that the dog can respond. A fast dog has advantages. A slow dog has advantages. A weak dog sometimes has advantages. So it's cool, man. It always just boils down to like the training. It all boils down to the training. Like the dog's important, but dude, I've seen some dogs, and everyone will say this. I've seen some dogs that like I would have washed. I'm like, nah, next. And then someone puts a couple years of work into them, and you're like, holy shit, that's a dog. So like all of it just comes down to the training, like the decoys that the dog has exposure to. That's what I was saying about ring 3. Like it's one thing to get a French ring 3, and then it's another thing to be really competitive in ring 3. Like I can get to ring 3 just training with my decoy on my field, and we can make some magic happen and get to ring 3. But if I want to do really well against like Axel Valan, I'm going to have to bring some guys in. I'm going to have to go and travel. I'm going to have my dog, like you were saying, the appropriate sparring partners to be able to pass that test. So, I mean, there's levels. There's levels to presence. There's levels to technique. And, you know, it's just like martial arts. I mean, I know both you guys, I don't know what happened to Shaun, but I mean, both you guys, you fought. I mean, you were fighters, so it's like there's never you're never finished. Like it's never like I know all the boxing techniques. Like I'm good, I'm the best. Like it's never finished. And same thing with a ring dog. You're never, maybe any dog, you're never quite finished. There's always going to be a decoy out there that can fuck your dog up in some way. Always.
Yep. 100%. There's always
I love it.
Dude, that's like the biggest thing that like I prepare. That's why like we do the stuff that we do now, like with all like the different, you know, ground game and like just different like pressure tactics that we do, like stuff that we don't even put online, just stuff that we just do daily with our dogs. Like it's always preparing for, someone that can come in here and, and try to run my dog. Like it literally, it's the same thing. Like we're going to prepare for anything and everything. And, it's hope for the best outcome, but we will never like not properly adequately prepare that dog for that, scenario, especially when it comes to, like the personal protection dogs that we train. It's just like, I know that you're going to go against something sometime, especially being in California where there's no gun, like the gun laws are, fucking stupid. And so like, I know people need to have adequate protection. How do we get that adequate protection, like for people? Can we provide that? So, we prepare these dogs that we bring in and we train, and like, I'll roll around with, and like fucking like, give them like that incremental pressure and show them these things and show them the different pictures and spend the time, to actually develop these things, because genetics are great, having sport titles are great, but the training, like you said, Andy, was like, that's the most part of it, is you have to be able to expose them to that and continuously always like learn with it. That's why we do like lifetime training with our stuff too.
Yeah, dude, I love your videos. I love watching your stuff, dude. It's cool. How many dogs do you have? 27?
A billion. No, as far as like client dogs, I mean, I've
your dogs, like your personal dogs.
Oh, personal. Let's see. We have, Aaron's dog is Aussie. I don't touch him because he's destroyed me multiple times. I legit, and I was gonna text Jake Scott this. I don't know if you know him, he's a Monterey decoy, but he fucked my hip up, dude.
What's up, Jake?
He destroyed my fucking hip, like literally the other day. Like I'm walking funny for like 3 days. Like we did muscle work with him, so I do this like exercise where I just pace back. Yeah, I just pace back and forth. I don't engage, and I mistakenly turned to the left, and that's the hip that he hurt, and he just blew my hip out to where like I actually fell on top of him. And I'm like a 240-pound guy. Like I'm not small in general, and the dog fucking wrecked me. And then I go into like a prone passive position, and she pulls him back, and like that's the part of the other exercise where the dog just hits the prone passive person, and he just fucking wrecked my right rib cage. I was like, get him the fuck out of here. Like I'll have to send you that video if she doesn't post it, but I'll send.
Girl's dog.
What'd you say?
That's your girl's dog. That's your girl's dog.
Yeah, that's Ozzy. Okay. That's fucking the monster. But yeah, dude, like
so you didn't get paid for that one.
Oh yeah, then we did this like passive one underneath like a tarp, and like we've been working every day. So like I just been like, okay, cool. I put the tarp on, and I was like, all right, let me not move out of the. Let me like not flinch before it happens. And then right before I did this, and thank God I did, because he fucking nailed me in the side of the ear, and it's a 95-pound Dutch Shepherd. I'm like, dude, it's like fucking perfect.
Dude, that sounds brutal. Now, how many dogs do you have personally?
So we have Ozzy, Lucy, who's Ozzy's sister, Cerberus, who's that psycho, the male, Cerberus. We have Zilla, who's Ozzy's son. We have Set, who's from Laracmo. She's a little male. Right. We have, who else the fuck do we have? We have Bibbs. There he goes.
We're back.
We have Bibbs, who's Aaron's rescue adopted pit from Minneapolis. She's out here. She's 13. I have one of my original dogs, Marilyn, who's 14, and she is a little pit. So we have a total of 8 dogs, and then we have like our rotating varieties of boarding trains. But yeah, I go to basically what happens is I load the van up, and then I go to the shop, which is 5 minutes away, and I just work all the dogs.
Right. Nice, dude. So what, like for your personal dogs, like protection, PSA, what are you looking to do with them?
We've been training PSA, and we've been training. I just train general obedience and just basically being prepared for whatever. like with my dog Lucy, that a goal for her was PSA. The outcome with it is that like I don't have the time personally to dive into it. I mean, because you guys are in sport, like you guys know how this stuff is. Like you actually have to like adequately like devote your time into that, and like
it's a beast, yeah, man. It's like yeah.
I mean, just like you were saying earlier, like you got to drive out to certain places. You got to spend time to travel. You got to go out and do all these things. And like for me, like personally, I just don't have that time to do that.
Yeah,
so like with Lucy, it was PSA. With Zilla, who is Ozzy's son, I was like, okay, cool. Like we'll go ahead and we'll try to do some sports stuff, and which I'm excited to see. Like once we can actually all link up, I want to see how he works with it, because that dog I'm pretty pumped on. And then Cerberus is my my wrecking ball. He's the fuck around and find out dog. When it comes to anything, like he's the dog that's gonna be for me personally. Like if like something fucks around, like especially now in times over here, it's not gonna be a good show. He has some live bites and stuff, and then Ozzy,
one of those.
Yeah, and Ozzy's just a fucking monster. I can honestly say throughout the country, and like now, like working with different law enforcement agencies, DODs, and like sports and all the other stuff, that's by far one of like the hardest. That's the hardest biting dog I've ever been bit by. He's broken suits in days. He's ripped through things. He's a wrecking ball, and Aaron has no aspirations of doing sport, so he's a straight personal protection monster. So you see, if you're in Gilroy and there's a Dutch Shepherd and a tall blonde white girl out there, that would be not one I would test, because chances are you're gonna break your fucking arm.
Yeah, dude, I love it. They look good, man.
Yeah.
They look like some shit, man. They look good.
Yeah, that's what I want to get. That's why I was like, I need to either drive out to you guys, or you guys got to come down here. But I gotta get my top level decoy friends out here working these dogs.
That'd be cool, man. That'd be cool.
Well, I'll definitely, if it's leg stuff, I got to get you guys those
yeah,
Ray Allen
absolutely.
gauntlets.
Always down for it.
So
yeah, those look super cool, dude.
Dude, the leather on the leg helps so much. Like it's been crazy for me, and with mobility too.
It's so cool.
So there's a question we have here, and this is something that's for you guys, because you guys are all nationally level, world level decoys. Biggest piece of advice to an aspiring national level decoy.
Biggest piece of advice, standard answer. Find a great club that you can go out and train with. Find a great mentor. Yeah, that stuff's important. Aspiring, like you have to go all in on it. Like you really have to go all in, because if you just want to dabble and like get in the suit and catch some dogs, like that's totally cool. Like there's a place for that. But if you're if you want to be at the absolute top level, it's all that you have to do. Like quit your job, start, you need to get the most information in from morning till night. You need to know it's going to be a several year process at a minimum. But you should just be completely immersing yourself, and you have to research. Like this is what I would tell you: go look at all the French ring champions. Go look at all the handlers and all the trainers that have won the championship of France, and like watch their stuff. Like watch how they handle dogs. Watch how they train dogs. You just gotta. I think you just really have to like put yourself in it, and don't have a backup plan. Like, well, if this decoy thing doesn't work out, like I could like deliver pizzas. Like you're screwed. Like there can't be any backup plan. It has to be immerse yourself in this, go completely forward, know you're going to be there, or, I mean, you're just kind of one of the guys.
If burn the ships. That's the that's the always thing. Burn the ships, no way to leave.
Yeah.
And
when you're surrounded around people, like who have been doing it longer than you have, and who have made national select decoy, don't be afraid to ask questions. Obviously you got to put in your work and your time. That's first and foremost. But constructive criticism, just as long as your ego is not in the way, is always the best thing anybody can give to you, because it's only going to help you get better, right? And there's a lot of things, specifically as a decoy, you don't realize you're doing until somebody points it out or shows you on video. Record everything, ask as many questions as you can, ask where you can improve, ask, what happened there, especially in your first few trials. And even as you get further in, like, one of my biggest mentors, I ask him all the time. We were in a trial in Florida, and I asked him, okay, man, how did it look? Was there anything I could improve? And, I was just kind of taking a little bit of a step with my right foot off the line, and he told me, and I watched the video and I saw it. So what I do, I go right back to practicing staying on the line. And, you got to always make sure you're on top of these type of things, because like anything, habits build and you forget about it. Right. So you need to always kind of stay grounded in that sense.
And then do you guys, and this is just like a personal question for ourselves, do you guys ever find the difference, the difficulty in separating from being a training decoy and a trial decoy?
There's a big difference.
I'll tell you what, it's extremely rare to find someone who's an excellent training decoy and then at the same time they're an excellent trial decoy. For French ring, at least. For French ring, I don't know about the other stuff.
No, it's the same
but
thing.
It's,
for sure.
It's a unicorn for sure. It's a complete unicorn. Like usually, you're a training decoy or you're a trial decoy. Like there's a lot of trial decoys that aren't worth a shit in training. There's a lot of training decoys that aren't worth a shit in trial. It's just two completely different. It's like being a master electrician and woodworker. Yeah. I mean, it's just two completely different things. But I mean, they do exist. They exist for sure. But just a completely different animal.
It's hard too for a lot. I think the majority and then the masses of people out there to kind of quickly shut off that switch sometimes, right? So like, let's say in PSA, I think the biggest kind of arguing thing that happens with being a trial decoy and a training decoy is, let's say you do put the pressure on a dog and the dog does shut down. Well, in trial, the first thing you would do is, chase that dog back to the vehicle kind of thing. But in training, you're going to do the complete opposite. You're going to step back. You're going to go into a prey bite and try to, build confidence in the dog. And you see it happen lots. And it's, it's a switch that's hard to shut off sometimes. You know what I mean? And you got to do whatever you can to find those who are great at training, not only to build your program, but then you have to find those who are really good at trialing to make sure your dog can still handle that timing, pressure, and everything that comes with being a trial decoy. So Andy definitely hit it on top of the head with it being rare to find both.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things, like one of like the bigger like pet peeves that like I've had is like there's, and within like in decoying is that there's decoying is not decoying. Decoying is a variety of different things, just as in dog training, there's a variety of different things. There's different applications, different understands or reading body language, understanding how to develop and build and then put them on the field to face, guys like you guys, or, just like, it's just something different. Like, for me, like I'm 100% a training decoy. I honestly don't even think that if I were able to like say certify in any form of sport like that, like I don't think that I would be able to switch off. Like I think it would be like, oh, I got to make sure that dog wins. Yeah. Like I got to make sure this dog gets this. or like, just from the years of like building what we've done. Just because like that's just like the natural reflex that I have, like as far as like, okay, cool, I got to build them, and like make sure like they're winning and they're ready for like the real world and all those things. But I mean, like that's something I think like that's super super important for people to understand. So decoying is not necessarily decoying; it's a variety of different things. You have high level decoys like yourselves. You have training decoys. You have just in the middle and the grays. I mean, then just in the sport in general, like in sports in general, there's so many different varieties of being a decoy, or people will say a helper. I mean, like there's just such a different variety in it. It's not just getting bit by dogs, and doing those things. Like you're not just a dummy in the suit. Like you're a skilled
totally.
Yeah, you're a skilled profession.
There's also a huge difference in between, different types of training decoys. Let's say, somebody who's used to working like lots of speed and with dogs like Mals and Dutchies and stuff like that. But then there's guys that, you got to give hats off to that are on a constant basis competing in these sports with off breeds. And, it sometimes takes a whole nother decoy to do that. Not every decoy can do both. Not only the timing, but the behavior on the bite. And that's why, in my opinion, you can't pay for a good training decoy, especially if they've got a diverse portfolio working with, X amount of dogs and across all different breeds.
Dude, 100%. I mean, like, that's like our bite night on Wednesdays. I literally I'll have like a pressa. I'll have like a pit mix. We'll have like a Mal. We'll have a Shepherd. We'll have some kelp. We have a Kelpie. We have there's like a variety of different dogs in there, and it's just learning to move with them, and build that confidence throughout the time. So I mean, like that's one of the bigger things, like the understanding of just learning how to train with the dog and creating that individual like understanding of like, okay, cool, like that's how that dog bites, and we need them to do this. So how do we do that and build that type of bite that we want this to keep the dog safe, jaw wise, and create the proper behavior, and then keep the decoy safe as well.
Yeah, I mean it's not as easy to keep a 140-pound Corso on the bicep for 15 minutes as it is with a little Malinois, so
it's
15 minutes.
Bro,
not 15 seconds.
Dude, I fight each dog in my, like, any dog that comes into like it's part of our Parma Canine pack, 10 minutes minimum. Like we're on a bite for 10 minutes minimum. Like it's literally like, okay, cool, we're gonna fight, we're gonna work these intervals, we're gonna bring them into the deep water, make sure they think about the tactics, because it's the same thing that actually I don't even know if I brought this up, but like when we talk about like fighting, like Shaun, like in the first round, like for me that first 30 seconds to 1 minute, there's so much level of anxiety and like you're just rage, like you just want to fight, you want to do this thing, like there's so much unclarity there. So I apply that same thought process when it comes to like dogs when they're fighting. Like immediately that first, and especially with the drive they have, immediately it's just like boom, like they're going, like there's just no clarity, like it's just
it's like a big adrenaline dump.
It's just an adrenaline dump. They go into it, they're fighting, they're doing this. So we started doing the long fights a few years back. I started to be like, okay, cool, let's see what happens after 30 seconds. Let's see what happens after a minute. All right, cool, let's fight for 5. Let's fight for 10. And I mean, with Aaron's dog, I mean, I'll fight that dog for 20 minutes. That dog's he's learning how to fight. He's learning how to, move around and do those things. And I've noticed a huge change in grip pressure immediately, tactical fighting advantages when it comes to like their entries and how they react to like pressure, with just fighting them for longer and showing them and marking those things. I mean, it sucks as
getting beat up all the time.
It sucks for fucking getting mauled for 25 minutes or 15 minutes, but I've noticed the results have changed drastically when it comes to that. It's been a pretty cool little journey with that. But like the long bites, that's been our jam here.
Yeah, totally. And there's, I think you kind of said it properly too. Especially in a sport like PSA where there's not necessarily a routine after, let's say, well, the 2 is still somewhat patternized, but the 3 is absolutely pattern. You have nothing to kind of expect there, and so you can't. You have dogs to the deep end and really see how they're going to react under different stimulus or scenarios that are going to be set up for them, and that whether that's keeping the dog on the bite for 10 minutes, or working your outs on the ground if the decoy falls, or pretty much anything that you can think of. You have to make sure your dog has been exposed to that in this sport specifically. It's one thing that I see a lot in French ring, and with a lot of the French ring dogs I work, they start counting the seconds, and waiting for the horn. So you start double horning and stuff like that. But it's not so much something you see too much in PSA, unless you're talking in the younger levels or entry levels, with a dog that's going to out when the decoy freezes up. It kind of shows a little bit of an error, or maybe not such an error, but a place in training where the dog could improve. Or the decoy starts backing up because the scenario is going to be done in the PDC after biting. So yeah, it's definitely something that I see training in both sports, but specifically in ring, in our club, we've actually started bringing a lot of the stuff we work in PSA, and working it in with the ring dogs, just to kind of try and help over prepare them for what they're going to see. So whether that's doing return of esquisse with can curtains, or taking a little bit farther like that, and getting on the ground and doing some work like that, that the dog might never see in ring per se, when you're practicing a pattern and you're going through your motions. Face attack, blind search, everything in a pattern, right? So, I mean, definitely a ton of benefit to, training how you do train.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both you guys, and like Mike, I like what you do with the long bites and 10 minutes, and you take them through that initial adrenaline dump, and okay, now you're still biting, think it through, fight, move it, blah blah blah. But that's why this conversation is cool. It just totally depends on the discipline that you're in. So for example, for French ring, it would be a death sentence to the dog's career to do super long bites with them all the time. Ring is an outing sport, and let's be honest, I love the off breeds. I love all that stuff. Ring 3 is for Malinois. I mean, there's a German Shepherd there. There's another dog here that is for Malinois, and it's for Malinois with pretty specific bloodlines. So when you get a ring dog 8 weeks old, it's he's gonna bite. I don't have to work. The dog bites, and he bites without any training. I shake something, he comes up and grabs it. But the out, it's an outing sport. It's a control sport. You have a Malinois that bites. Congratulations to you. I want to see all you for the dog. I want to see you go out. They haven't been corrected for over a half hour.
Yeah.
And they've had fucking Axel Valan downfield taking it to them. And you go, boom.
Yeah.
Full control. For ring, dude, it's all about the out. It's all about the stop attack. Those things start from day one. Fuck your bite. I know your genetics. You're going to bite. But I need you outing crazy precisely. And Shaun, one of the things you said, the dog outs early, it's done. Yeah, definitely training. But for a really good ring dog in training, you want them outing early as fuck.
Yeah.
Because
Really? What age do you start training out, Andy?
I mean, almost immediately.
Yeah, it's so different.
Dang, that's crazy.
Definitely by 4 months old, like they should have it.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and
for sure. Because look, if you're building up a dog, or like, dude, if you want like a personal protection dog, like fuck that. Or if you have a client and you're building, their oven, it doesn't matter. But if you want to compete in a championship level in French ring, you need to have a very specific Malinois, and the training, dude, stop attack, 8 weeks old.
Oh shit.
8 weeks old, stop attack. Because think about it this way. You tell the dog, like, let's say you start training the stop attack at a year old. Sounds reasonable, right? You've been telling the dog for a year, you run down the field and you bite the guy. And then all of a sudden you change it. And the dog goes, well, you've been lying to me. You've been telling me that every time I run down the field, I get to crack the guy. And now, after a year and a half or 2 years, you're like, whoa, wait a minute. You got stop.
Yeah.
The dog's like, what the fuck? And I looked at ring trainers just the same way. I go, well, when do you start training the stop attack? They go, immediately. The fuck are you talking about? Like, immediately. When you start training everything right away. And I was like, what? Like, how? Like, I don't get it. But it's technique. It's the training technique. It's how you present that. You need to put that idea in the dog's head at a young age. And if your training is good and if your dog is good, it's going to work out. But if your training is shit and the dog isn't qualified, it's going to be a big problem.
Yeah, it's a super good point.
That's a big thing. Like I think we've always been kind of criticized by teaching our dogs at a young age for like outing early. Like, cause 8, 9 months, or even beforehand, like our dogs will learn to out, because like that's one of the big things when it comes to like personal protection. Obviously, we want the dogs to bite and bite and hurt and pain compliance and all that stuff. But the control aspect is what saves the dog's life. If that's what shows like the animal control, law enforcement, everything like that, like you can out.
I think it depends too, like what Andy said, specifically on the discipline. Like I was definitely super shocked. I was one of the people who was like, are you sure you want to out the 8-week-old puppy? You know what I mean? When I started doing some ring stuff, and like you get into it and you're doing, like, the pup is 4 months old and you're doing the motions for defense right away. But again, for that discipline, like Andy said, it's an outing sport where my PSA dogs still to this day, after all this ring training that, and we even mix practices sometimes. So I'll be, working a pup in PSA and we'll flip over. Next dog up is a dog in French ring. And it's 2 completely different programs. But like my dogs in PSA, I'm lucky if I start to let them out before a year old. And, the majority of their whole puppy stage is all built on grip development. It's a grip sport. The grip is judged. And when it comes into sending your dog into an enclosed trailer with a decoy and a chainsaw, you need to make sure your dog, the last thing you want to worry about is your dog's bite and the actual, mechanics of the bite. And you're absolutely right in saying that you can get a dog that can, if with the right bloodlines, as soon as that dog lands on that plane, you bring it out, it's going to bite full mouth. But then you got to, make sure you work all the environmentals properly at a young age and not rush a little too fast. And that's where I think a lot of dogs in PSA don't succeed in the early stages, because they introduce things on the suit with more confrontation and didn't take a little bit slower approach to it. The guys who are standing on the podium in PSA are the guys who took the longest approach, to be honest with you. There's a few dogs, don't get me wrong, that are still super young and competing at the highest level. But it's interesting because with the discipline, it's completely opposite. You got, in French ring, you want to have a dog who has a ring 3 by 3 years old. And then you got PSA, people are, not even stepping on the field till the dog's 3 years old.
Yeah.
But the 18 months is the first age range you can do a PDC, right?
I think it's 14 months.
14 months.
Don't quote me though.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
ring
14 months.
For brevet, you have to be a year old.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
did.
Yeah.
We do like when we teach like the outs on the dogs is we use like this breaker bar. It's like a little like flip like knife thing that we just literally, it's like in the beginning, you know, we do the low boom pop off and then put right back onto the dog, right back into the decoy, whatever it is, to kind of go from there. But I mean, like that's the biggest, and it's also like, you know, kind of going on to like what's the reasoning for the out. You know, like with Andy's sport, like, you know, with French ring, you know, it's the game of outs. Every single second or millisecond that dog is on that fucking leg or wherever that's on,
millisecond.
it's points reduction.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't, does PSA have that same level of like restriction?
So, I mean, obviously they judge you on your out, but you do have 3 commands you can use and 5 seconds in between each command. So really that's 15 seconds to out your dog. You'd be annihilated in ring with that. So
you'd lose everything, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Not just be
it's different. The out isn't as important, right? But again, when you have your dog biting under extreme conditions that are super stressful, I would rather have a dog that doesn't out than have a dog that doesn't turn on at all. And that's where taking this slow, fundamental approach to building puppies for PSA specifically is, I think, a little bit more successful for this sport. But again, to each their own, and I know that there's people that have done it really fast. It's just the in the past, and the dogs who have done it and made it to the kind of podium level, they're all people who followed the same approach.
Yeah, man, that's the beauty of a sport, of dog sports, because like, who doesn't love to see a Malinois, Dutch Shepherd haul ass downfield and just bang the shit out of the decoy? Like,
yeah, totally.
Everyone loves seeing that. And then you see a dog that you go, out.
Yeah,
every time.
right away.
You
Yeah.
start the word out and they go, boom.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
They bite, they let go just as quick as they take off to go for the bite. So, like, who doesn't love to see that? And the combination of the two is the pinnacle of the fucking sport. You have a dog that's going to destroy a decoy, and then you go, Jasper, boom.
Yeah, on the name.
And let go, and then he's ready to fuck you up again. That's totally. Like and you can't say one training approach is necessarily right or wrong. Like, dude, you could have a dog. You start training the out at 3 years old, and they have a lightning fast out. You know, you can't tell that person, dude, you got to start training the out 3 years earlier. They're like, fuck you, my dog's out's perfect. So it's like, is there a right or a wrong way?
I think like I mean, even like in our comment section, like KD Matthews, I don't know if you guys know KD, but he's like, just don't train outs like an asshole, and then you won't have a problem. Like, then that's been one of the biggest things I've seen from like Holland. You know, like just getting dogs from there, like, you know, when we get like the dogs like from like deep into the KPV lines, I mean, you know, the way that they train their outs is just like, it's almost like barbaric in the sense of like how they get the dogs out. I'm like,
I think that there's a lot to say there too with the lines of dogs too, and specifically, you know, whether you want to be competitive or you want to have a dog that comes down the field and smashes and has a little bit different of an edge to that dog. You know, because some of the most impressive dogs that have ever hit me on a courage test were not fast out at all. But then you got to appreciate the other side, like what Andy's saying, where you do have a dog that still comes fast on the field and overall is a much more well-rounded dog. Might not drop you in terms of, you know, the actual hit and intensity, but those are not the dogs that win trophies. That's for sure.
Nope. Yep.
Yeah, like that's like you know, you got to think of it like the out is an art form in and of itself. Just the out is an art form in and of itself. Everyone has a little different way of doing it. Everyone gets a little different results. It depends on the lines you have. It depends on the dog that you have. But like for me, if you get a badass Malinois from like badass lines and they're a big biter, like how much training does it take to get them to go and bite the shit out of someone? Okay, decent amount of training. How much training does it take to do that and then have them lightning fast out the first syllable out of your mouth? Like it's like having a crazy banger that's just in the utmost control.
Yeah.
Like you go and they're
totally,
and they're out. To me,
so that goes.
It's super impressive.
And that goes into like the training that I was talking about earlier, is that the clarity in the bite, the understanding of like, you know, like what you're talking about, like when it comes to like the words that are coming out of your mouth. So like when we talk about like the deep water stuff that we do when we bring them in there, like, you know, the clarity of the bite, like what is happening, what are they thinking of the whole entire time. So as soon as like you're like and pop right in front of them, or close and pop right in front of them, they're right there. Like clarity of the bite and training that and like moving through like those motions and having them understand exactly what the fuck you're saying. Or every time they counter and you dig, and the decoy gives the verbal reward and the physical reward through muscle flexion and all this other stuff. And just that stuff, like those are the things that like I think like those are part of the part that I think like that's, you know, brings into that, like at least for us, like all our dogs will fucking destroy somebody, but you know, the dogs we work with, and as soon as you say whatever their outward is, it's pop. But we build that through the clarity of teaching them how to fight, and bringing them into those waters without creating conflict. And like that's the big thing is, you know, without creating conflict in the bite, because a lot of times, you know, people will walk up and they expect all this stuff and from the dog, and they walk up, they want their dog to out, and like 15 seconds, and the dog's like fucking fuck this, and then they go crazy. They're not necessarily listening, and pop, like, you know, you have an issue. So like there's ways of we've been training it for, you know, years now, to teach the dog to out without that conflict, but also creating that clarity. You know, like that out though. I mean, like you said, I think, well, Andy, I think you said, like, you know, the out itself is its own little art form when it comes to that. When it comes to aggression, you know, and like, you know, just biting, like, you know, that's the real, you know, in sport, you know, that especially in French ring, that's the, you know, it's a game of out.
Yeah,
man, I'll tell you what, and I think that you know, a lot of the listeners or viewers would benefit to hear this. For dog sports, you're gonna train your dog differently leading up to the trial than you would when you're building them. So like both you guys, this is why it's cool that you guys, like both you guys have fought to a certain level. Boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, I'm not exactly sure, but fighters go into a training camp and you get ready for your opponent. Like, you know, if you guys had to get in a fight right now in the next minute, but you're going to train way differently when you have a fight coming up. So you're going to have a regiment, you're going to have coaches, you're going to have cardio, you're going to have all that stuff. So with a ring dog in ring 3, like you have to have a month or two at least leading up to that trial to train them for what decoys are going to be there, for the extent of the discipline that's required. Like, you know, I competed with my dog at the NARA championships in like November or like October, whatever. And then like he pretty much just chilled out like until like February or March or whatever. And fucking dude, I pull him back on the field, dude, he's not doing a tight stop attack.
Mm-hmm.
Like his outs are going to be slow. You have to peak the dog to the discipline that's going to be required that they have to execute.
Yep.
Yeah.
At that trial. So like training your dog for French ring, for PSA, for personal protection, or rather for police work is one thing, but then peaking them up to take the actual test is, I mean, it's a training camp.
Yeah.
You don't live like you live in a training camp 365.
And similar
That's
to fighting
cool.
too, like, you know, I have this chat all the time too with other decoys. There is such a thing as peaking too early or peaking too late. You know what I mean? So you got to make sure that your schedule leading up to trial is, you know, built properly. And, you know, sometimes if you're dealing with clubs, newer clubs, especially on the West Coast and PSA, you know, it's you got to learn a little bit by trial and error, or if you're, you know, work with other people from other sports, which in my opinion is always the best way, and kind of follow, you know, their ways of proofing exercises and making sure that, you know, you peak at the appropriate time and your dog's going to be in top performance for that specific trial.
Hell yeah. I mean, like,
Yeah,
it's the same. I mean, it's the same thing. Like when it comes to fighting, like, you know, you dial your camp in, you make sure that the point where you come into that, you know, that ring, that, or no pun intended, that ring, that field, you know, you're ready to go. And it's something that's, you know, you're just there. I mean, I remember even like my boxing days, like there's points and times in like where you fall asleep at a certain time to make sure that you know, you're awake at this time, like you're at your peak thing, like that you go to sleep here to wake up and make sure you're here for this.
Yeah,
like,
and train
you know,
at the time you're going to fight, because your body works just like clockwork. It has to, you know, and same thing with your dogs. You know, if they're trialing at a night trial, I mean, you probably want to train at night, right? And same thing. It's, you know, and the crazy part is, you know, going back to the whole talk about peaking and stuff is, for me, like you know, unfortunately peaked too early for probably 1 or 2 fights, and your nervous system gets shot. So, and you can't move the same, your timing's not the same. So, you know, if you're relating it back to dogs, you know, you're looking at like a dog who, you know, has, let's say, a little bit of an outing issue, or like in French ring, a dog that has troubles with a specific pivot, but the dog's been pretty solid, and you peak too early, and then it becomes an issue. You create an issue out of it. And that's, you know, going to affect you on that trial day. So definitely super important to make sure that you have a proper regimented, built out plan for that trial.
Yeah, man. Plus you got to take into consideration, like when you're playing at ring 3, it's 40 plus minutes on the field, one stretch. That's it. There's no obedience in them, but it's 40 minutes on the field. So you're going to trial in July in Ohio. It's going to be 90 degrees. Like your dog's going to have a heat stroke. Your dog's going to the conditioning, dude. I'm going to tell you what, people in ring, they're swimming, they're treadmills, they're, dude, the conditioning required for a ring 3 dog is almost shouldn't even be. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's so hard on the dog. Like so you have to take that into consideration too. You have to consider, oh, there's a trial in blah, blah, blah this date. I want to go to that trial. Well, if you're in Brevet ring 1, whatever. But if you're in ring 3, I'm like, hell no, dude. I'm not trialing there in the dead of summer. My dog's going to freaking die. So like conditioning is so key. And like, when you have a dog that's, you know, like my dog, like he's all jacked up, like he's on the field, he's just like he's a crazy dog. 45 minutes, and you still have to be listening perfectly, especially at the end. So it's like such a crazy mental, physical, dude. And like you've seen Malinois, when they're working really hard, like they get going. Like, it's almost like they're drunk.
Yeah.
Like, they're so just jacked and on adrenaline. And, like, you drove for 10 hours, you're on a new field, there's new decoys, like they're just like their experiences is so key. Dogs that travel a ton and compete a ton. So like all those factors weigh in. Like how far do you have to drive with the dog in your car? What's your training been like leading up? Who are the decoys that are going to be there? What kind of threat do they pose? And for decoys, you know them. Like for ring decoys, you know what their strengths are, you know what their weaknesses are. Like people might say about me, like, okay, well he's good on the attacks, but the exercises he's a little. So like people kind of know you and know your strengths, and you know they prepare for you. But it's just so all around, like conditioning, the time of year, who the decoys are, where the trial is, what your training is like leading up to it. That's why I like the sport so much, is because the luck of the draw. In ring sport, ring 3, the other levels, you draw the night before what order, with the judge and with everyone in the trial, what order the exercises are going to be. So face attack, basket, gun attack, sir, you don't know what order they're going to be in. So for example, like with my dog, if we draw a stop attack first, fuck. The very first bite work exercise he has to do is stop within 3 meters of the decoy. He's probably going to bite if the stop attack is first. If the stop attack is drawn last, I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, God. And even for the obedience, like if some obedience exercises get drawn before others, or some are next to others, like some dogs will benefit from that and some dogs won't. So that's why it's so fun, because like I've been to trials where I know goddamn well this dog is better than my dog. Like it's just a better dog. But the luck of the draw, the day it was, my dog got more points. You know, no different than football, no different than baseball, basketball. Like it really comes down to like the freaking coin toss. Who gets the ball first? That's just what makes it so exciting. Like the decoys that are there. Man, I was at the regionals in Wisconsin, and I don't know if you guys know the decoy Bambino. His name's Ivan. He's super cool. If you know him, you should for sure follow him. I saw Bambino do the dog in white, which is like the practice dog, like the judge can. I saw Bambino do the dog in white, and I was like, fuck. I was like, oh my God. Like, that's just the fun of it. Like, that's the fun of the sport. You get a good decoy, you get a crazy draw. Dude, like, you don't know what's going to happen. Your dog might come home with a nice trophy, or you might realize your training sucks.
Yeah,
totally.
You were not prepared.
Totally. That's the exact same way I look at PSA, and that's why I love the sport specifically, just because, you know, again, with, you know, routines that are created a few weeks before the trial, you have no clue what you're getting into. The decoys have no clue what they're getting into. You're really just relying on your fundamentals and hoping they carry you through whatever scenario or variable is going to be thrown at you. And that's why I love this sport. And it's just, you know, again, it's super, super exciting. But it's definitely super cool for me to hear you apply that same kind of thought process to ring, and, you know, the luck of the draw of the order of the scenarios for sure too.
I think that's like one of like the coolest things that I get, even just like talking to, like, it's like Andy, like I'm not sure if you ever competed like any like in combat sports, but like the same thing, like the thought process of preparing for the worst. Even if, like Shaun, I think you mentioned this, like that 1% of time, like you may see this, preparing for that 1%, and as a decoy and as a handler, that's probably like that's one of the most important things. Like we're always like, you have to prepare for that one time.
Yeah.
Like that.
And even if they don't see it, you still need to have it, you know?
Yeah, it might not be necessary, might not have to do it, but that one time.
And like Andy said earlier too, he was talking about, you know, no matter how badass your dog is, it could be an absolute monster and have control too. But no matter what or who your dog is, there's always going to be that one person or that one variable that will throw that dog off. So, you have to make sure you expose it to as many different elements as you can to make sure, the behavior is going to be consistent at what's thrown at you. Whether it's, talking esquives, and the different ways that French ring decoys operate that, or you're talking PSA and you're getting into different things that the decoys are or holding on the bite, or, like even the retrieve. There's so much unknown in the PSA 3 retrieve that, it's pretty hard to prepare. Like one of the hardest ones that I saw was in a trial down in Massachusetts a few years back. They did a steel trash can lid, but they had to throw it into the back of a like a cargo truck with 2 decoys at the front of it and 2 decoys at the dog and the handler, and everybody's antagonizing the dog and trying to get it to bite, and the dog literally has to go to the back of this cargo truck to pick up this steel garbage lid in the middle of 4 decoys, or 2 decoys who are blocking pretty much the entrance. That's the type of stuff. Again, if you didn't show anything like that to your dog, there's no way your dog is going to retrieve that item.
No, it's all about the pictures and the stress and all the stuff you put on them and how you reward them after that, and having a good training decoy and just having good training in general.
Dude, it's such like alchemy. Like it's so. It depends on the trial, where it is, what training your dog has had leading up, and like you in PSA, like the judge comes up with this scenario, and you're like, oh shit, that might be a problem. Like it just all. That's why it's so fun. It's not a gamble, but it's almost like, let's see how this goes. For the high levels.
Big time. Yeah.
It's almost like we think we're prepared. We're gonna find out if we are. I think my training's good, and that's the cool, dude. You know what? That's what really attracted me to dog sports, because anyone can say they're a great trainer. People out there will go, "Oh, dude, I'm a badass trainer," but now test it. Now put it to the test. Now show up to the arena and put it to the test, and then you're going to find out if you're the best, because there's a point system to determine that. Imagine if there was no NFL and there's just a football team that's like, dude, we're the best, and then the other team's like, no, we're better than you, and there was no way to figure it out. Mm-hmm. You want to figure out who it is.
That's mine.
Shut up, dog. Shut up.
Yeah, totally.
Anyway. Yeah, man.
Definitely.
It's just a fun thing. Hey, maybe there's someone competing against you that you don't necessarily care for. This stuff just makes it interesting.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Oh, that guy's training's nothing. Oh, I'm way better than that guy. And then he beats you.
Yeah.
And you're like,
totally.
God.
And then you take that too, and that all comes back to, I think a lot of people in dog sports are super competitive, and you got to just channel that in a positive way. And it's that it could be your world. Like for my club specifically, fingers crossed the borders are going to open up soon, and we'll get a host of PSA trial. But with that being said, I have just in my club, I think 3 dogs or four teams competing in just level 2. Everybody's trying to beat each other, and it's my own club, you know what I mean? And I work all their dogs. So, and my dog personally is going to be competing against them too. So, but that friendly,
awesome
competition there is, what gets the chills going down the back.
Anything could happen. Your dog might break a toenail 2 days before.
Totally. Big
and that'll
time.
affect his shit. It just totally depends. Like, you hear stories of like an athlete, you're like, oh, they got in a huge fight with their girlfriend before that game and they fucking sucked on that game. Like, dude, the same with dogs. Like, a dog shows up to a trial and they're on antibiotics.
Yeah.
Because they had some weird thing happen. So now their cardio's screwed. So they broke a toenail. Now their jumps are gonna suck.
Totally.
And it's like anything. That's fun though, man. Having that club and having all those dogs in and seeing it. I mean, for you, you want everyone to pass and you want everyone to crush it. But whoever gets the
I
highest
still want to
score
win though.
highest score.
Yeah.
Just depends. Hopefully, I don't know. I'd hope it was me, but
yeah, totally. I mean, and then if there's a problem with my own dog and my team specifically, I just blame my other decoys. So
hey, it was that guy. You should have let him work the dog.
yeah, totally. No, it's all the fun and games. You know what I mean? And you know when you get caught up in trial decoying, you kind of you kind of forget that a little bit in the sense that you're trying to be super competitive and you're trying to bring your A game to the field, and you're not really looking and getting down to the level of the handlers and all the work that they have put in that you're just about to try and unglue. And I think handling a dog, there's a huge benefit to that if you're a decoy as well, because you get to see that side. It makes you appreciate a lot more. Like, yeah, sure, I might have just ran this dog off the field, but how long is it going to take this team to come back from this and retrain through all that, right? And you'll see a lot of decoys when they get to a specific level, and they're able to let's say take points on a dog or run a dog off a field. They won't go to the handler and have a friendly chat about it after, and that's where it's kind of a hard thing for me, because that's the first thing I want to do. I want to talk to them about how I think that they can work about this issue, or what they're doing currently to make their dog better, because that's all you want to see. You want to see the dog succeed in the end of the day. We're just specifically put on that field to make sure that they don't or try
doing
to make
your
sure
job.
Yeah,
or
right?
you're the competitor. So you're the one fighting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Totally.
Yeah, you're just doing your job. Yeah, it gives you way more of an appreciation. Like when I first started decoying, I just wanted to kill every dog.
Totally.
But then, I got my own dog, whatever. But then my club, like I started putting all my club members in trials, and I wanted to see them do good. And then, next thing you know it, I'm like to this, come on, bro, lighten up a little bit. Come on, it's a club trial. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so, like,
yeah, totally.
Like total appreciation for both sides. But with that being said, like, hey, ring 3, it's on.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Ring 3,
for sure.
For French ring 3, it's on. I don't care if we're friends.
Totally.
Ring 3.
Go time.
I mean,
your dog better be ready, because if not, I'm gonna expose him.
Yeah, totally. And for me, it's it's PSA 1 and up, because I mean, you'll see me on the field, even at my own club trial. I'm not taking it any easier on my dogs. If not, I'm going harder, because it's my training that I want to see succeed and be able to handle a certain level of intensity out there. But yeah, no, it's game on. It's trial day. It's a whole different ballgame. You tried to help prepare the team, and if something happens, then you got to look at going back to the drawing board and figuring out where that is.
Yeah, man.
So before we end this, before we cap this off here, I want to thank you guys for being on here, both. And if you're not following Shaun and Andy and your decoys, you are missing out greatly.
How dare you?
You are, and exactly, and it's how dare you not, like, you're missing out greatly. Two of some of the most athletic, best decoys out there. And my consideration, and in my opinion, of what it is, I do pray for you guys if you meet any one of my dogs on the trial field, because it's gonna be bad. It's gonna.
I love it.
Just once.
Love it, man.
Just once you get bit by them, just send me the heart emoji or something like that. Because I will prepare these dogs to hurt. So
love it.
But I appreciate, I 100% appreciate you guys. Everyone, follow the links that are on the question things. These guys are amazing individuals. And you need to follow them. You need to start working with them, especially if you're into the sport work. And just again, guys, I appreciate you guys for being on here.
Appreciate you having us.
Thank you.
Hell yeah, guys, man. Anytime. And then we got to get you out to Cali. And also, one thing that people don't know, and Roman's probably going to get pissed off at me, but we are preparing a decoy online course. It's not set up yet. I just talked about it 15 minutes before we got online with
sweet.
these two amazing gentlemen. So they will be teaching courses on PCU. So make sure you guys tune into that. And then we will have some good times. But hey, guys, again, appreciate you guys for taking the time out of the day. I know it was a long time here, but I thank you guys, man.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Man. Both you guys.
Appreciate it. It's been a great chat, and silent little plug here. If anybody's gonna drop a follow me on Facebook, because my Instagram's a little bit unfiltered and I don't know how many people appreciate it. So definitely Facebook is the way to go. That's where all my dog stuff is usually posted. So
Sweet, man. Hey, quick plug for me. Follow me. We just started a new YouTube channel. I don't know if you guys seen. We have a couple videos up, but it's gonna be super cool, dude. It's really different from any kind of videos that we've done. But our YouTube channel, just search The Dog Oasis on YouTube. And we just have some super badass videos there. You can check them out, but there'll be a lot more coming. We're gonna keep doing it. And again, super appreciate you guys. Fun, very fun.
Awesome, guys.
Absolutely.
Well, cheers.
Cheers, boys.
We will be talking in a second here. Thanks for everyone tuning in, guys. Appreciate everybody.
Later.
Later.
I gotta take a fucking